Right. So, welcome to A Voice of Light. This is a virtual protest poetry showcase featuring the poets who completed our protest poetry class, sponsored by the Poetry Foundation and taught by our teaching artist, Yuki Jackson. Tonight's showcase is important because one of, the central mission of Kitchen Table Literary Arts is to create and hold space for BIPOC women and femme-identified non-binary writers and poets. And this space is essential, right? Contrary to what the political climate will have you believe, they are currently banning books, right? That is literally silencing people, mostly people who look like us, right? They are really coming for diversity and inclusion activities, especially here in Florida, but you see that kind of legislation, that kind of banning, those kinds of restrictions throughout the nation, particularly in the South, but for sure in Florida. And so the work of Kitchen Table becomes even more important as we kind of take a stand and push back against those narratives that continue to try to make us feel underappreciated and silenced and underserved and underrepresented. I like to think of us as a historically resilient community. That's a phrase that I got from the Poetry Foundation. I fell in love with it and I use that now, historically resilient. And just this idea that our voices matter and our lives matter. And one of the ways we can make sure folks know that is by sharing our voices. And so that's what this class was all about. This class was made possible by the generous funding of the Poetry Foundation. Our classes in general have been supported by individual donors from our community, namely in Tampa Bay. Other writing organizations like Free Expressions based here in Tampa Bay, and 200 Muslim Women Who Care, who also funded seats for our college level classes this summer. So really thankful for that. Really feeling empowered by this evening and this moment, and really excited to hear y'all voices. So let's get into it. Our very first poet for tonight. Let me make sure I got the right one. There we go. I would like you to welcome Alexis Foxworth. Spotlight. There we go. Alexis Foxworth is doing her best to tell and write the truth. A page and performance poet, Alexis bridges the gap between both mediums to find audiences willing to be challenged. An estate planning lawyer by trade, you will find Alexis writing for or searching for answers among the Virginia trees. Everyone welcome Alexis Foxworth.
Yay. Thank you, everybody. It's really good to see all of the beautiful faces. I have two poems. I know we can do up to two, so I have two. And I'm excited to read. So this first poem is entitled Questions for Montgomery and for Claudette Colvin. And so if you all aren't familiar with the story of Claudette Colvin, it's my hope that when this one is over, you will. Questions for Montgomery and for Claudette Colvin. Montgomery. How dare you demand Claudette stand on a bus as severed as the two Americas in her body? Claudette, when you found out you were pregnant and a teenager, what did you feel? Did you feel like you broke the movement's back, that the bus boycott would crash into an end? Montgomery, how dare you learn of her pennilessness and her darkness and forbid her a martyr? Claudette, truthfully, did you think the melting of the sun above our brown heads, tinting your skin this chocolate, would have made you unfit to lead our revolution? Montgomery, how dare you never command she rise, because what is a fetus if not a rising of warm flesh, refusing to rest cool? Claudette, turn to me and tell me, as we both face the wind, did the first baby kicks scare you, being baby yourself under this southern breeze? Will you answer with your heart if I promise to listen? Montgomery, how dare you? Seethed at her sitting while she readied to labor a body into the earth. Claudette, Can you teach me about labor pains? Did it hurt more than the rejection of never being known as the one who first refused to give up this seat? Montgomery, how dare you? Trust her to carry a body, swaddled in the anchored afterbirth of America, and cradle his weights and his wants, his cries and his cravings as heavy as the Southern snarl Claudette. Besides Mom, did your baby born ever call you a legend, a rebel, a resistor, the leader that you were? Did you ever learn your many names besides Black girl, who stood in the shadow of the heroes? Montgomery, how dare you? Ask that she hold a legacy, but never carry and honor Claudette Colvin. If we properly name you decades later, brave Black young woman who birthed a revolution without the recognition, will it be too late? That's poem 1. Thank you. And my second poem is called No Fire Left. This is about a tragedy in Johannesburg that recently happened. So no fire left. I remember that August night in Johannesburg when I walked cool and free and watched the babies burn. And the 3rd floor of a home glued down with rusted metal wires and hope. The fireballs of flesh sinking out of windows to meet the cold, hard air one last time. I stared into the lost eyes of mothers who could not catch their young, whose tears could not drown the flames. Whole families melted to ember and ash, singed limbs were stuffed into bags and bodies wheeled away. I stood across a street with my boots still wet in the concrete of unfinished things and heard neighbors yell to the medics that everyone consumed was poor and Black and packed in a complex and too dark to live safely in a divided Africa and too Black to trust the ground to not collapse on top of burnt debris. Smoke scratched the sky, and me and the poor and African ones choked on an acid of eternal haze under South Africa's blackened sky. We looked up and saw fumes of apartheid, South Africa's original dark cloud, lingering like a line refusing to bend toward freedom. Lingering like smoke over the damp and distant townships, lingering like the trail of tire prints after a man's arrest for being Black, lingering like flapping seas carrying Dutch settler ships into the country's drooling mouth, lingering like a father's eyes searching for a job in a flattened land squeezed of its gold. I wish I could have run inside to scoop the soot from the ground, to rescue the baby into the arms of her mother. I wish I was made of repellent for skin and blankets for limbs, to catch every South African blaze which rose from the subtle kindling of segregation that tipped candle stretched to explosion. I wish I flew into the gates of Johannesburg with an extinguisher by my side near my travel journal and camera. I wish I remembered what they taught in that public school classroom, with the lean teacher, her stern face, ready to quell my uncontrollable laughter. If you ever face a fire, she said, pull the pin, aim it at the base, press the lever for dear life, spray, spray until your arms tire, until there is no fire left. I wish I had a pin to pull. I wish I had a base to aim. I wish I could press these August fires away until white puffs of fresh freedom landed on the lungs of every South African. I wish I could spray away all of the fires until every wrist was free from the scorching chains. When I return home from the burning building in South Africa, I will grab my daughter, lay her across my lap and rub her warm skin. I will give her what I wish I had when I was there, a weapon to sweep the fires back, I will teach her what they taught me. Amara, if you ever stare your soul into the flame of an injustice, pull, aim, press, and spray. And I hope my daughter hears me when I tell her what I wish I told South Africa that day. Please promise me, Amara, that you will remember that the only way to stop a fire, my dear, is to make sure one never rises in the first place. Thank you.
Mm.
Oh, fire straight out the gate. Oh my goodness. That was so, so good. Thank you so much, Alexis. Just beautiful, beautiful work. Thank you. Oh man. Oh man. Yuki, you lucky than a mug. You was working with them. Oh man. Okay. Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you so much, Alexis. All right. Next up, we have Mitzi Mack. Mitzi Mack. Where are you at? Let me pin you. All right. Mitzi Mack, a media specialist within the Hillsborough County School System, is an accomplished teacher and curriculum specialist for 27 years and currently serves on several American Library Association committees in support of freedom. That's FREADOM, okay? Freedom. The right to read banned books. How appropriate. I think it's banned book week. Is it this week or was it last week? I think it's this week. This week, Mitzi, yeah. Often buried in a book, Mitzi is also a community conscious volunteer and participant in continuing education courses. Mitzi, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. So I've never done this before. So I'm going to just read one poem. 22nd and Speedway. Amidst rousing bar brawls, bumper to bumper Chevys and Fords, ladies on porches shouting, "Don't y'all let me tell you," drowns out as the crack of a Smith & Wesson blast cuts through the air. On the swoosh of a baseball curving toward Grandma's picture glass window, as all of us run, duck, dodge, and dive, tearing clear out of repeated bullets and shattering glass. Moving in slow motion, left foot hitting the dry desert sands, just as right arms grazing a prickly pear. My head whips around quarter-inch stare, thinking, what was that? Doubles? All in a day. Life on 22nd. On 22nd and Speedway, bumper to bumper traffic in slow motion, bodega on the corner, and somewhere there is always someone yelling out, "Don't y'all let me tell you," but desert sands under my feet, and all I see is the Speedway and me. That's it.
All right, give it up for Mitzi. Thank you so much. We got a Tucson shout out in the comments, recognizing just a sense of place. That's wonderful. Thank you, Mitzi. Next up, we have Les James. When I have all these windows up, I gotta find you and then spotlight for everyone. There we go. All right. Les James is an emerging writer mixing poetry, prayer, protest, and a sense of playfulness to creatively explore interweaving questions about nature, science, social justice, and what it means to be human. She understands her work to be a practice of spiritual activism. You can read more about Les at malessa.com. That's MALLESSA.com. Please welcome Les James.
Okay, thank you. So the first piece I'm going to read has a pretty long epigraph, so it's called Odd Sympathy, an homage to Paul Laurence Dunbar's Sympathy. And the epigraph starts, in 1665, while confined to his room with a quote unquote slight indisposition, Christian Huygens noticed that two pendulum clocks he had recently built were keeping perfect time together. When one clock's pendulum swung to the right, the other swung to the left, exactly 180 degrees out of phase. When Huygens tried disturbing their oscillations, he found to his astonishment that the board from which both clocks were suspended began to jiggle. That jiggling gradually nudged the pendulums back into anti-phase synchrony. In his letters to correspondents, he described this odd sympathy of clocks as marvelous. And that's a quote from Stephen Strogatz in a Nature Review Physics article in the poem. Everyone knows the poem which speaks about a caged bird whose bittersweet song we all heard, with its sense of longing reaching beyond words as the line between truth and metaphor blurs. These days, scientists speak in awe of the odd sympathy of two pendulums swinging and synchronizing, moving together like a pair of beating wings, invisibly tethered by forces unseen. Figuratively speaking, I imagine that the cage was once a wild thing too, sprouting feathers of green while from the ground it grew, until it was cut down, chopped up, and otherwise hewn into a product worth only its market value. And of course, there are those still trapped in proverbial cages, chained to a system that falsely assuages the destruction in which it mindlessly engages, while lives are bought and sold for minimum wages. It's strange to consider the course of events that has set humanity on this path with its ill-fated trajectory, such that self-destruction is an increasing probability unless we learn how to break our own symmetries. But did you also know that a bird's cage vibrates to the song it sings, that the cage might shake apart at the right frequency, that the world is defined by these hidden sympathies, which hold the key to what it means to set ourselves free? And then for my second piece, the poem titled Why Black Women Write Horror Stories. And it's a not quite fictional survey of Black female horror writers in the US. And it was inspired by a talk that I heard Tanana Reed do, who's a horror film writer and filmmaker. She was talking about the relationship between horror and creative pursuit of liberation, I guess you could say. Black women write horror stories because US history should be told as a scary story, because slavery was a living nightmare, because generations of Black people survived mass kidnapping, physical and psychological torture, rape and murder, and systematic dehumanization, because look at where we find ourselves today. Black women write horror stories because Black people still fear for their lives, because white people are still afraid of their own shadows, because most people refuse to actually look in the mirror, because everyone wants good and evil to be Black and white. Black women write horror stories because we have to exorcise these demons, because it isn't just all in our heads, because the monsters we have to face are real, because this country fed upon the flesh and blood of our ancestors to bring itself to life. Black women write horror stories because Black women have seen some scary shit, because it isn't safe to be Black or female, because the past isn't dead, even if it's been buried, because the future could be even scarier. Black women write horror stories because these are the lessons Black kids need to learn, because what you don't know can get you killed, because happy endings don't tell the hard truths, because there's no sense in lying about it. Black women write horror stories because we are the hopes of our mothers, because we are the mothers of hope, because we know how to find our way in the dark, because we've done this before. Black women write horror stories because it's time to right the wrongs that have been done to us, because this is how we help our people make it out alive, because we have always been our own greatest heroes, because telling our stories will change history. And that's it.
Thank you. Give it up for Les James. The chat was lighting up. It's a bunch of fire lines in that one. And a shout out to Tanana Reeve-Du, one of my favorite Black horror writers. She's got a new book out, and then I think she's in that collection that Jordan Peele just helped edit. And I think that just came out yesterday. So if you're into scary stories and you want to support Black horror, definitely look into it. Excellent. Thanks, Les James. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. All right. Next up, we have Alyssa Sotelo. Alyssa Sotelo is a hybrid poetry and nonfiction writer. She has a BA in creative writing from the University of Arizona and is currently attending the MFA program at the University of South Florida. Her writing explores borderlands, specifically the migration crisis at the US-Mexico border and her Latina identity. Welcome, Alyssa.
Hello. So I have two poems that are similar to the other things that I write about, which is like borderlands and the migrant crisis. So the first is called The Line Between Me and You. See the soft face of a loved one with the peaks and valleys of their smile, the light behind their eyes, a caress of eyelashes above their cheek. Hear the way they move, the thud of their footsteps as they echo across a room, the small rush of each breath they take, and a reassuring heartbeat beneath your cheek. Touch their skin and feel the warmth that emanates, the silkiness of each strand of hair as it trickles through your fingers, the solidity of an embrace as it wraps around you and holds you for just a moment. What if this person, your person, my person, our person was hurting? See the pain and the arch of their eyebrow, hear their stomach rumble endlessly, and feel the burning of their overheated skin. Watch their future waver and then seem to slip away. Did you cause the pain? Did I? Was it because we didn't care enough or we were too busy to see, to act? What would you do to fix it? Or better, what wouldn't you do if you knew you could stop it? Would you still do it if it was for me? Your person and mine, they breathe the same and bleed the same and need the same. Everyone has a person, is a person that someone loves enough to move mountains. So why don't we move them for each other? And then the next poem is called In the Place I Call Home. See how the sun sits still during sunset, burning the horizon with a warm glow and setting the sky ablaze. Thousands of lives have been taken here. In a race to reach a safe place, only a few live to tell their tale. Feel the swish of a dry breeze that sucks water out of mouths and spits out the slick sweat on your neck. Traveling across this treacherous land, getting lost is easy and being found is worse. It only takes one small mistake. Feel the saguaro stare, arms reaching, and needles like those on a spindle daring you to prick a finger. They take the bodies they find and send them to Tucson. Only there they can try to identify what was left after the scorching. See the gleam of a million stars, slowly emerging pinpricks of light through an endless darkness. Colibri will search for your family and tell them of your fate. At least there is some closure for those who are found. My home is this place that has been weaponized, colonized, demonized, but my home isn't the one we should blame. Thank you.
Give it up for Alyssa. Excellent, excellent work. And such a important theme to be exploring in your creative work as well. Again, the thing that I love so much about protest poetry and exploring protest poetry is it is more often speaking to things that are happening like right now. There's this quote by Nina Simone, and she talks about, you know, what does it mean to be an artist? And it's talking about speaking to the things that are happening now, right? Taking those creative risks to speak truth to power. And that's what y'all are doing. So just wonderful, wonderful work so far. We are going to hear from our teaching artist, who is our featured kind of poet for tonight. I have known Yuki Jackson for a few years now. It has been a distinct pleasure to get to know her as a person, but also know her work as a poet. Yuki Jackson is a Black and Japanese poet and educator. She focuses on empowerment and enlightenment, specifically seeking to share her perspective and experiences as the divine feminine. Her poetry has been published in literary journals such as Four-Way Review and Cream City Review, for which she was nominated for a 2021 Best of the Net Award and a 2020 Summer Poetry Prize. She is a regular contributor to the Poets Notebook column of Creative Loafing Tampa Bay, and her work has been featured by NPR Next Gen, Spady Cultural Heritage Museum, and the Goodwin Proctor Law Firm. She was also featured as a playwright for the Strauss Theater's BIPOC play reading series, showcasing her cross-cultural writing through an interdisciplinary and collaborative performance. Yuki has taught classes as a professor at the Ringling College of Art and Design and as a freelance teaching artist. Kitchen Table is so happy that you do that, for numerous nonprofits, businesses, and schools, including Keep St. Pete Lit, the Paper Seahorse, and the Bowles School. Her work as an arts educator includes being the founder of The Battleground, a youth program serving a historically marginalized community in Tampa, Florida. She holds a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from the University of Tampa and a Bachelor of Arts in Criminology from the University of South Florida. Please welcome Yuki Jackson.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so encouraged and inspired by everyone's readings tonight, so we're just sort of soaking it up. I'm gonna share 2 poems total tonight, but so for this first poem, I feel that I should share this one first. So this one is called Katara, for real. And just the only thing I'll say about it is that if you know the famous artwork from Hokusai, the Great Wave off Kanagawa, of that picture of that wave over the mountain in Japan. Just fun fact, I'm from Kanagawa, Japan originally, and so I'm writing this poem from the perspective of that wave, or as the wave. Katara, for real. I am the one who brought the great flood of warriors onto your shore. Roaring, majestic life from the motherland. Hear that rumble. Our gale force winds have broke the chains. See it all come rushing as change. So fast, best believe that's whiplash on behalf of the ancestors. In fact, we are them. You see, the energy stored from all the injustice we bore only passed on. Isn't bending blood just like bending water? The avatar of God, call me Katara. Truth is, began at the bottom. In that space so dark and deep we couldn't be seen. The only light down here is produced from our own heads, projected in third eye position. It is here where pressure is most profound, where we make our way through the rhythm of sound, manifesting waves from our vibration. This is what it means to see deeply, that bass throbbing as pulse that begins tsunami, born from the underground, that place closest to the core, creating waves as crescendo, following lines that lead us to the peak above that mountain in the distance. You know, energy travels as spirals, winding up like a cork about to pop the top off this bottle, shaking up this blood we drink to form our sanctity. Isn't it once there was no word for the color blue, so we called the sea blood? Like the stream we laid the beat upon, with enough room to lay our verses and move the masses, even before we perform. This means the mass we gained has been invisible, but it's been stacking up. All this pressure, all this attempt to hold us down has only made us stronger. No, we are not woke. We are awake, as in awake, as in those ocean waves created when a vessel moves through a medium, as in the medium cannot be compressed, as in this wake cannot be suppressed, as in the wake when we gather to pay respects to the dead with their body present, I am that body who gave all this labor. What life through yonder water breaks. This is the real genesis, meaning these are the generations, a generator cord pumping through these children, AKA warriors. Best believe these MCs came out by the dozen. You can't fade the mother of all creation, the original, the source. Follow me and you'll find your birth. To return to that side we lost, making us complete in this narrative of human history. We are the evolution, the new branch in the story. But in order to understand life, you must reckon with your birth. Even Hokusai couldn't imagine what was coming. Born as arsenal to seal our fate, best believe I came to slay. And here I will deliver the ark, not as in a ship to escape, as in we are the great flood. Like the ark in my arm raised as they bow to my power. I am the great wave off Kanagawa. I'm atomic, I'm nuclear, and now we're in the delivery room. You want to know how the universe began? One word, boom.
Boom. Just incredible. Just incredible. Come on, Yuki. Oh man, just beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, so now you see why Kitchen Table was so hype and excited to have Yuki Jackson as our teaching artist for this class. I mean, just straight fire. All right, so we are actually going to take a 5-minute break. Stretch your legs, bio break. Poets, run through them comments, like people really resonating with a lot of those lines, and you can just see people big up in your work. So we're going to take 5. Be back at 7:16, and we're going to jump off with the second half of the show. All right, thank you. All right, all right, all right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. What a really inspiring and provocative, and I mean, just the work so far has just been amazing. Such powerful voices. It really, you know, Yuki mentioned, you know, feeling, you know, inspired, and just kind of hearing the work tonight, hearing your voices. And when Kitchen Table does things like that, it just like affirms the work that we do in the community. And it just fills my heart with so much gratitude, because we're here because you're here, right? So we're not able to do the work that we do without y'all doing the work y'all do. And so just to kind of see that interaction and that exchange and that give and that receive in action, it just fills me with just so much joy. So just really, really thankful for tonight, and thankful for y'all sharing your voices, and of course thankful to everybody who came out to hear the work tonight. And then I also am always like extra delighted when we get poets who are sharing their work for the first time. So I want to shout out Mitzi again. It's not a small thing to share your work, especially with strangers. And so hopefully this is just the beginning for some of you who are new in sharing your work, recognizing that your voices are powerful, and that your work matters. So we're going to kick off the second half of the showcase with another friend of Kitchen Table Literary Arts, Micki Berthelot Morency. I want to make sure I get it right. Who have released her debut novel this year as well. So want to big up that and drop that in the chat in a little bit too. So let me get her spotlight going on here. All right. Micki Berthelot Morency is a Haitian American author and a graduate of Northeastern University and the Institute for Writers. The Island Sisters is her debut novel that launched in June of 2023. We had an excellent conversation about her book at Tombolo Books. It is on, I think, their Facebook page, where you can still kind of see that conversation. Just wonderful. Her works have been published online and in print, and she lives in St. Petersburg. Everybody, welcome Micki.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. I mean, taking this course with Yuki was honestly my first time at learning how to write poetry, but I've written stuff that I've been told I like poems. So anyway, I'm going to read two short poems, and in them you will find my culture, because it seems like everything that I write, my culture somehow find a way of getting into the words and the story that I'm trying to tell. So the first poem is called Language. After months of frustration in a new land, swallowing anger in my native tongue, for I couldn't speak yours. While I lost my voice, I listened, I read, I learned. With all the time I was unseen, my silence unheard, my pain ignored, I emerged. Now you want to stop me? For I speak, I write, I fight in your language of words you don't want to hear. I am silent no more. The second poem is called Backstory, and I think a lot of us will probably identify with that story. Our backstory was full of kings and queens in shades of polished ebony, warm brown, and high yellows on a continent far away. But the bosom of the ship carrying them away stripped skin of glow, leaving dusty prints of colonialism. If you know our backstory, would you think us beautiful and human? Your greed reshaped our history. Now its teaching is banned to spare your sensibilities, hide your crime of fake superiority. So your children enjoying generational wealth stand with our blood are not guilty, while ours swim in the thickness of poverty. Burned and banned books come from our DNA. Can you erase that? No, because no matter, we know. Thank you.
All right, give it up for Micki. This was especially timely. I don't know how many of y'all are in Florida, but they are like just the attacks on talking about race, and what's so infuriating about it is it's referenced as if it's separate from American history. Like the things that we are talking about that are quote unquote making white folks uncomfortable. This is the history. These aren't opinions. These aren't, you know, like, oh, I think, no, these are facts. This is what happened. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Micki. All right, let's keep it going. Next up, we have Dorsía Smith Silva. Dorsía Smith Silva is a poetry editor of The Hopper and full professor at the University of Puerto Rico. She is the author of Good Girl, which is a poetry micro chat book, editor of Latina Chicana Mothering, and co-editor of 7 books. Kavankari will publish her first poetry book in 2024. That's next year. Congratulations. And she posts on Twitter and on Instagram at @DSmithSilva. Welcome, Dorsía.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you so much to Kitchen Table for this wonderful workshop. Thank you, Yuki, and thank you to my colleagues that were just a really great group. Thank you so much, full of gratitude for that. So I'm going to read 2 poems this evening. The first one is called American Theory. Imagine your stack of words drowning, the last green before the winter house of your mind closes, the only ghost resembling hunter that tucks you in when night takes aim at your hide, daughter that is saturated to other with a waterlog of you must speak English here, you must try to fit in here. Homeland to them is the watermark in your passport, how your submerged spirit sloshes on the welcome mat, and south stars in your shoes push past the tempest of arrival that made you swim to storyteller, memory that never washes out. And the second poem is called In the Black and in the Red. This is after Evie Shockley's poem, Supply and Demand. What are the opportunity costs of drowning Black bodies, going through Black bodies like water? Each rainy day, you try to foot the bill, even though the groundwater is flushed. With Carmen ink from a ledger that has disfigured Black bodies, what are the comparative advantages of having an assembly line of drenched Black bodies? When you pay through the nose as justice falls underwater with Black bodies drowning, do you think you can just keep throwing Black bodies at it? Data shows no gain when Black bodies drown. You have dropped a bundle, you have dents in your wallet, still you double down the drowning of Black bodies. Believe me to trade with another country. Thank you.
All right. Excellent, Dorsía. Thank you so much. Oh, man. Y'all brought it. Y'all really, really brought it. I'm so excited. So we have another reader tonight, Livia Clinton, who is no stranger to our kitchen table classes. And so I'm really delighted to host her and hear her work tonight. Livia Clinton is a poet and novelist from Harlem. She intends to be a storyteller for her community. She currently lives in the Hudson Valley, where she homeschools and teaches creative writing classes to children. Welcome, Livia.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say I'm thankful to be here tonight. I had a great experience this summer with the protest poetry class. Thank you for hosting it. Thank you for teaching, Yuki Jackson. And thank you everyone for sharing your great poetry tonight. So my poem is called Some of Us. Today I cut the peppermint that grows too wild, count blossoms in the morning, and regret that my roses haven't bloomed by afternoon. The sunflower that grew 9 feet tall was flattened by a midsummer storm, face down to the ground. And I think about gods that like small and humble things. Those purple flowers I saw at my foot the summer Toni Morrison transcended, they are here again. And I never did find out their name. I don't know why, but it feels like if I don't document it, then it never happened. Like so many other things of the past, of our history, of my heritage. And I am reminded that naming is a powerful thing. So for some of us, it has to look like this. Rebellion as a different structure, a different form, a different wisdom, a new ritual on our bodies, ones formed from our own flesh. So picture it, a different window, one that looks away from the profanity of a continuous city and towards the signs and symbols of their own holiness. Picture it, inner city girls moving into houses, learning to slow down and walk, and at night battling rest. And picture it, inner city girls hosting family reunions in their backyards, everyone leaving with a plate in hand. And picture it, speaking without interruption, language without constant apology. And picture it, Black woman in the desert, inheritance in hand, laughing for 40 days. My second poem is really short. It's just a moment that I witnessed in a hair salon, and I just felt like a hair salon is like a perfect place for a Black woman to create a poem. It's called Woman in Hair Salon. She was getting her hair relocked before her trip to Mount Kilimanjaro. She said, as she settled in a chair for a long afternoon session, a continued conversation appeared. I don't love hiking, but I love that I get to the top. I see all of this clarity only for a moment, and I recognize something ancient. I can almost see it, then it's gone. I can't hold on to it. And she stared at the mirror in wonder. Thank you.
All right, all right. Oh, such beautiful work. Again, I want to thank y'all in the audience for lighting up the chat with lines that are resonating, with moments that are resonating. Such beautiful work tonight. I'm just thankful to bear witness. We are going to hear another poem from Yuki. And then, I mean, we've got plenty of time. I was nervous about the time. I'm also pretty sensitive to, you know, us being on screens after the workday. So I'm not mad that we are, you know, coming in and shorter than the scheduled time, but I'm also excited that we may get a chance to have a little conversation, take some questions and comments and stuff from some of y'all who've joined us. And also it's kind of a chance for the poets. I actually have a question that I'm gonna ask after our last poem. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for a little conversation as well. So one more time, let's hear from our teaching artist, Yuki Jackson.
Thank you. So for my second poem, it's called Sunshine State of Life. And this is an ode to the state of Florida. Okay. Poem, Sunshine State of Life. The battleground was birthed from a series of gunshots and love. You see, sometimes what's bad is good, although it seems like it's only worse. But inside a black hole is the only way we can create the sun. And isn't this what we're known for? Our nickname when we're not known for being a joke and oppressing people, being the first colony in the States, saying falsely that it was discovered when there were already inhabitants. A vain search to find this youthful fountain, some man named after a lion who ran off the natives living on the land, showed up to take their place instead of learn from them. So I say, I want to change this narrative. Showing up in a space not to take over, but to exchange enlightenment. Like the juice that grew from the field as fruits that we may hold in our palms, like a grenade, until it's time to pull the pin. And so I put my pen to these words so that we can understand what we have to do to move forward. To connect with our inner self, to understand that while searching for paradise above or beyond in a foreign land, we need to first search inside our own hearts to find the savior. We might just have to look into the mirror and see what reflects back. An imperfect being, someone we can only witness the flaws of, something we can only see as having sinned, and so we put it down. We can't imagine how something so unholy can have so many holes that we can plant seeds in to make grow into a field of flowers, like this land we love and hate called Florida, Spanish for land of flowers. And now it's time for us to bloom. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Yuki. Thank you for that. It is difficult being in Florida with everything that's going on, and a lot of folks, you know, are leaving. But there's something to staying and not being run off, to staying and fighting, to staying and raising your voice. Thank you so much for that, Yuki. As a fellow artist who's clearly staying, at least for now, right? I want to give a deep expression of gratitude to all the poets who shared their work tonight. Please clap a hand, unmute if you want. Let's hear the voices, you know, take a moment and just give gratitude for those who shared their work tonight. It was really wonderful. So thank you. I do want to, again, shout out the Poetry Foundation for funding the class. When we applied for the Poetry Foundation grant through their programs and events grant funding, they are committed to funding arts organizations run by BIPOC leadership. And so it's really been a life changer for Kitchen Table, doing the work that we love so much. We did a survey a few years ago, and we found that the top 2 barriers to Black women and women of color taking creative writing classes was cost and time. And that answer does not surprise me in the least. And so we are doing our best to stay committed to finding ways to offer our programming. So applying for the grants, of course, and doing fundraisers. So I do have an ask for everyone tonight, and that is, please help us amplify our work. Just continue to speak our name in your communities, share our work in your communities. Again, we are because you are, and part of us being able to keep doing the work we're doing is, one, for folks to know what we're doing and to see that it's actually like we walk in the talk. And tonight's showcase is walking the talk, and we couldn't do that without y'all. So thank you so much for y'all support, and let's keep supporting each other. I do want to open up the floor for a Q&A, for a little question and discussion. If you like, you can drop a question in the chat and I will kind of read it out and get the conversation going that way. You can also use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to ask a question. I would like to ask a question of the poets who took the class. And this is primarily just a little bit about how you as a writer and poet see the intersection of activism and art. How do you find your way to talking about that in your work? What was that like? Anybody? Micki?
Okay, well, I love the art, but the only art that I practice, I guess, is writing. So I use that medium, to express a lot of my experiences as an immigrant, as a Black woman, living in a space that I've been told for a long time, like I didn't belong into. So I find like, yeah, every time I have the opportunity to like write something or whenever something happens in my life, I can always go back to that medium as a way of expressing and sharing like my experiences with people who may not know what it's like, to be me, to be, I don't know, that person who live in a different place and have to make it home, even though sometimes you're told that it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm thinking Zora Neale Hurston has that piece, What It Feels Like to Be Colored Me, and kind of what it means to raise your voice and talk about identity versus what people's assumptions are and things like that. Nice. Alyssa?
Yeah, so I feel like for me and what I try to do, like specifically in the pieces that I shared, is tying the reader closer to the politics and things that are happening. I feel like sometimes everything can be so dehumanizing in the news and like in the spaces that we talk about different like activism and things that are going on. And so like having a space to share from like a heart to another heart, like the stories and like the things that are at risk, has been so important to me. I know that I got involved and like started doing more volunteering after reading a book about a volunteer space that was in my backyard when I lived in Arizona. So I think it's just so important as like a call to action as well.
Yes, call to action. Excellent. Anybody else? Les?
Yeah. It's all just kind of like a jumble of thoughts in terms of like, so how I think about or how I approach the intersection of activism and art. And one of the lines in the poem was, the power of naming something is one element. I think Leslie was talking about the calling is a very resonant word for me in the sense of being called to write something, or the call and response. A lot of times I imagine my work as being a conversation, either with an experience or an event, or even sometimes like this sense of wanting to just, this is how I experience it, and in sense putting that out in the world and wondering like what other people's experience of it is. And I was also thinking, I think one of our themes in the class was talking about possession and the sense in which some bodies are thought of as being possessions, as being property, but also, lifting up this interpretation, this sense in which, we can be possessed by the divine, we can be possessed by ancestors, by spirit, even by, whatever moves us. And I have the sense that, some of my poems, I'm just like, I don't know where it came from, but it's something, that or a thought or idea or something that I've been possessed by and just kind of need to get it out on the page just to get it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Les. I also had another question, and this is like because I saw a conversation happening almost between Alexis, your work, and Livia's work, where Alexis, your work was international and felt very big, right? And then Livia took us to these small moments in a personal garden, this small moment in the hair salon. So both of those things kind of ask us as the listeners to position ourselves in places that might be, different but familiar. And so can you talk a little bit about that idea of, I mean, like Alexis, you took us all the way to Soweto. Like, how do you see sort of the connection between our personal as political to this larger political landscape?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I appreciate that compare and that contrast. I hadn't, looked at it in that way. So the first thing that sticks out to me is just saying yes to the fact that the personal is political. This was personal to me because I've traveled to South Africa. And unlike existing in America, I've never felt so at home. So I felt this sense of just safety, right? Just the sanctity of South Africa. And that was heavily informed by the fact that I am Black and woman in America. So even though it had this international lens, that definitely emanated from the personal aspect of me being Black within my, little confines here in America. So definitely rose from those questions internally, and having that experience just reinforced it. But it definitely started, if you will, from, my personal little garden here. So two are definitely connected a lot.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Alexis. And Livia, how was your approach in bringing us into these really like quiet, intimate moments that actually mean so much?
Well, I just want to say, Alexis, I love being compared to your work in any level. That was a great poem that you read. I look at poetry and as sort of a witnessing. And for me, that witnessing is sometimes small, intimate, and personal. So like for the second poem with the woman in a salon, this was just a woman sitting next to me, really speaking out loud to herself. And I'm just there witnessing and listening to her, marveling at what she's about to do and marveling at herself. And it was just like this intimate moment with this like Black woman about to travel the world. And I just felt like, wow, that had to be documented somehow, even if she's never aware of how much that touched me. And I think that to me is poetry, and that to me is sort of protest, because it's pushing back on the images we're used to seeing in poetry and pushing back on the narratives that we're used to reading, and putting it out here that this too is important. This moment is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that harkens back to your first piece where you mentioned the importance of documentation, right? Of bearing witness to it. Wonderful. Anybody have any more questions? I mean, I got plenty, but I don't wanna hog the question space. Anybody have any questions or want to drop something in the chat?
Can I ask what's happening next with Kitchen Table? What you got going on?
Yes. So we have our online classes are usually slated for the summer. So in the fall, we are focusing more on like some local events here in Tampa to try to get folks to come out. So we have a short story club called Sips and Stories. It's you read a short story and you meet us for drinks and we talk about it. We've been doing it, I think, is it 4 years, Jasmine? Like 4 years? Yeah. So, and it's just the fall season. Everybody wants us to do it the whole year, but we're like, no, just the fall. And so this year we're actually focusing on Florida-based writers, which is exciting. Also featuring some of my work, which I'm a little nervous about, and have been avoiding for 4 years, but now getting put in the hot seat, I guess. We also have, what else do we have going on? There is a Black Writers Conference in Durham, North Carolina. The Griot and Gray Owl Conference. We are sponsors of the conference, and so we'll be going to that. And am I missing anything, Jasmine? I'll put you on the spot.
Nothing that we can announce yet.
Yeah, okay. So of course, more things in the works. We are definitely actively working on additional funding to offer more online classes. It's interesting because we were kind of ahead of the curve with online classes. We were offering online classes. You see Livia's nodding. We were offering online classes in like 2015 and 2016. And so then when the pandemic hit, then everybody was offering online classes. And so, yeah, so it's been interesting trying to navigate that landscape now with a lot more, you know, of our colleagues in the industry offering classes as well. But again, as I mentioned, we are really trying our best to work with organizations that'll help us fund these opportunities, because I do believe that that really makes a difference. And then we're also trying to figure out a good mix of like virtual events and in-person events. And so this past year, Kitchen Table just got its first dedicated workshop space. So we are paying rent now, but we have a space in Ybor City. And so we've been trying to get writers to come out to that. But also the thing about virtual is it offers us an opportunity to work with folks that aren't in Florida, like many of you, you know, like Dorsía, you know what I'm saying? Like you are probably one of the furthest away, I think, for this class. But so trying to think about, you know, what is that dance between still offering virtual programming and also getting folks to, you know, come in person. So my email is always open. Y'all have it now. If you've got ideas for classes you'd like to see, programming that you'd like to see, like seriously, just hit me up. I am open to ideas and collaborations, and I'm, you know, I joke about it, but it's not a joke because I'm serious as a heart attack, as my dad would say. But doing this kind of thing, meeting new writers, supporting new writers, supporting established writers, you know, like it really is my jam. And so being able to do that through Kitchen Table has been a blessing and something that I'm committed to. And so, oh yeah, NaNoWriMo is coming up. That's National Novel Writing Month. I'm using it to finish my memoir. So we will have some virtual programming around that for next month. If you are working on a book length project, NaNoWriMo is an excellent time to kind of galvanize that energy of other folks working on long form projects. So be on the lookout for that as well. So I think that's about it. That's it for, okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you for sharing your work. Thank you for supporting the organization. I am humbled and just so full right now. Like, thank y'all so much. This means so much to us to see y'all faces and to hear y'all work like that. So be in touch, take good care, and have a wonderful rest of your week. All right. Peace, y'all.